This video's for you, chaps magoo. Couple of control decks going head to head here. Urza versus Nicol Bolas. One lander is no good even with Mystical Tutor and Swords. We'll mulligan. And that's looking much better for us. So we'll just get rid of the Argivian Restoration there. A turn 1 Soul Ring from our opponent. Into a Talisman of Creativity, so could see a turn 2 Nicol Bolas. There's a Reflecting Pool for us, so we'll just drop that into the Azorius Signet. Our opponent is down to 3 cards in hand at least, obviously draws at the beginning of the turn here. Okay, and there's an Angrath's Rampage, so sacrificing an Azorius Signet. And they do not get their commander down. Okay, into a Mana Vault, so could get down the Karn Scion of Urza here, although they do just play their Nicol Bolas into that and swing in. Could make some decent constructs in the meantime though, so let's get down the Adarka Wastes into the Mana Vault, which will tap down for 3 mana. And yeah, just play out the Karn Scion of Urza. Tick that down, -2. Makes a 2/2 construct, but obviously they're going to get bigger as the game progresses, hopefully. Down to 2 cards ourselves here. Jace, Unraveller of Secrets into play. Scry 1 and draw. Takes him into a Blackleaf Cliffs, and that is 2 cards available in hand. We'll take a damage from our Mana Vault here. We drew into Metallurgic Summonings, which we can't play, unfortunately, thanks to the Mana Vault being tapped. So I think we make another construct here. And yeah, it'll just have to be land and Basalt Monolith. We'll hit this Jace for as much as we possibly can. Scry 1 and draw from Jace again. Then dropping an Ancient Tomb after that, so going for another Planeswalker in Ob Nixilis Reignited. And minusing that down to destroy another creature, so I think it's the Ob Nixilis that we go after next turn, or actually, I think we go after the Jace. They can tick this up to draw next turn and then we can hopefully get rid of it. Going to risk not untapping the Mana Vault again. Okay, a Cyclonic Rift. Not necessarily the best thing here. Tick up the Karn. And they put a Glacial Fortress into exile. Decide to give us a Talisman of Progress, which they shouldn't have done there. So we'll tap down the Basalt Monolith here. And play ourselves a Metallurgic Summonings and just hope that our opponent can't block or can't counter that. They do not counter, so we'll throw down the Talisman of Progress. And our construct bumps up to a 4/4, so we'll get rid of this Jace while we can, hopefully. Still 2 cards in our opponent's hand. And a Vamp Shooter, the bombs just keep coming from our opponent. Don't think they've had a bad draw yet. Our opponent tapped down a bunch of mana and then went for the Ob Nixilis Reignited. So that is one with the Multiverse. You can look at the top card of your library at any time, play lands and cast spells from the top, and once a turn you can do that without paying the mana cost. I just threw out an Otawara Soaring Sky. And there we see a Frost Titan. So tapping down our land with that. Not going to bother untapping the Mana Vault again because we can untap the Basalt Monolith at instant speed whenever we want. Just put 3 mana into that to untap it. We draw into a Darksteel Citadel. So that bumps this up to a 5/5. We can offer up the trade with the Frost Titan if we give up on the Karn. We could also make another artifact creature now by playing the Cyclonic Rift, but means that we're not overloading it, and I think it would be better to overload. Yeah, so just plussing on the Karn again is fine, I think. They have to choose between an Arcane Signet and an Iron Soul Enforcer. They obviously give us the Arcane Signet, which actually isn't the worst thing in the world because it does mean that we can play out another artifact here. And that bumps up the Construct token to a 6/6, which means we can better block the Frost Titan, so yeah, feel okay about that. We can now untap the Basalt Monolith as well, ready to go for an overloaded Cyclonic Rift next turn. Does mean that we're not getting down the Urza, but Urza, while it's not having any chance of being melded, isn't necessarily the best thing anyway. So yeah, we will pass the turn like that. Could be encouraging my opponent to sacrifice the Ob Nixilis here as well by getting rid of the Construct token. And they are going straight through to combat, so Maybe the Frost Titan going to tap down the Construct and get rid of the Karn. Yeah, we'll just allow the Karn to go down here, unfortunately. And they're tapping out a bunch of mana, so giving us a decent chance to go for a good Cyclonic Rift. They have not ticked up the Obnixilis yet. Typically you'd go for the Tutor with Liliana. Yep, so they do go for the Liliana Vess to put a card on top. Okay, and then it is Obliterate, so yep, just been too slow here apparently. Could have floated the mana from the Arcane Signet, I suppose. I imagine people just scoop to them from here usually. They could just carry on playing the game out and see what happens, but I imagine it just goes on forever at this point, yep. And we've got a Jace the Mind Sculptor as well, so they definitely win at some point, but the problem with Super Friends is that I imagine it takes another 10 turns for them to actually win from here. And they're obviously at a massive advantage restarting the game with 3 Planeswalkers and 3 spells. So yeah, just for the sake of it, I will play out another turn or two, but I can't imagine I'm going to carry on playing much longer than that here. Searching with the Liliana, and they can obviously get that out for free with one with the Multiverse, so that's exactly what they do. Nicol Bolas Planeswalker. And they're even making their lands, destroying our Metallurgic Summonings, and then Dimir Signet as well. So yeah, I think it is safe to say that we just lose here, and we'll concede there and get on with the next game. Urza up against Sisay, Weatherlight Captain this time, and we do have the Might Stone and Weak Stone in hand along with fast mana, so definitely keep this, hoping for a fast meld with our commander. Draw into a Plains. I don't think we're in any particular rush to get down the Mana Vault, so just pass the turn at that. Oh excellent, my opponent dropped a Mystifying Maze and we just passed through the turn, so our fast start goes from fast to not so fast. Oh well. Mosswort Bridge from our opponent. At least there's no fast mana over here and still stuck on colours. Right, let's try again. A Training Grounds now, so we can get down the Training Grounds here before our commander. Should have our commander in play now, of course. Get down the Mana Vault, save from casting it later. And now a Scavenging Ooze, followed by a Bounce Land. Okay, and a Negate as well, so they can get down their commander next turn. So do we just go for Mind Stone and Weak Stone onto their commander? We'll throw out the Ancient Tomb and play our commander here. And then if they get down their commander, like I said, we can go Might Stone and Weak Stone to get rid of it. Our opponent plays out a Maze of Ith, and there we see Sisay, Weatherlight Captain, 7 cards in their hand. And there we see a Nimbus Maze. I'll just throw out the City of Brass, get down as much blue mana as possible, and cast ourselves a Might Stone and Weak Stone. That can be -5/-5 onto the commander. And then our Urza only costs 5 mana thanks to the Training Grounds, so we can do this straight away as well. So now we will exile the Scavenging Ooze, and we will draw 2, then discard a card, I think. Okay, drawing into the Karn Scion of Urza. Just get rid of Nimbus Maze is fine. They could have some spot removal for the Urza here. Okay, managed to make it through our turn though, so I'm just hoping that my opponent doesn't scoop on us anytime soon. We'll go for draw 2 and discard a card again. Okay, just getting into more lands, getting rid of the fetch is fine I think. Throw down the Spire of Industry, and we can play Karn Scion of Urza, start making some constructs. That's only a 2/2 at the moment, probably get down the Artifact land next turn to buff it a little bit. Let's see, we can... yeah, just go for draw 2 and discard a card again, I think. And this time into Mystical Tutor and Rings of Brighthearth, so... get rid of... yeah, we'll get rid of the island there against my better judgment. Now seeing Vivian, Monster's Advocate, I think that can eat a negate here. Draw into a Generous Gift this time, just in case they do sneak a Planeswalker past us. So drop down the Darksteel Citadel. Minus down the Karn again to make another construct, so that we can actually start dealing damage to our opponent. Playing out a Rings of Brighthearth is fine here, I think. Should have ticked up for 2 to save some mana there, actually. Yeah, we'll go for the +2. Not going to bother copying it, because we don't actually have any artifacts in hand here. And then let's go for draw 2 and discard a card again. And once again, I could have saved myself 2 mana so that we could actually pay for the Rings of Bright Hearth here. But I want to hold up the rewind here. Okay, Cyclonic Rift. Let's just get rid of the Wrath of God, seeing as how we've got Cyclonic Rift now. And our constructs are 5/5, so we swing in at our opponent. They are going to go for Maze of Ith unless their brains have switched off here. Might be able to sneak 5 points of damage through. Nope, they are awake. Haven't fallen asleep to our plays yet. Now we see a deserted temple, so wondering if we go for the Generous Gift onto our opponent's Maze of Ith. That obviously gives them a blocker, but it does mean that they can't be as much of a hindrance to us with that and our constructs. So tap down City of Brass, pings us for 1, and we'll go Mystical Tutor to decide what we want to draw into here. I think we're fine grabbing a Sphinx's Rev at this point. Okay, so we draw into the Sphinx's Revelation. Let's tick up on the Karn first of all. And we'll say no to that. I'd rather put mana into the Rings of Bright Hearth onto our Urza. So we reveal the top 2 cards to our opponent, revealing Otawara and an Academy Ruins. And they decide to give us an Otawara. Right, now it's noteworthy that they do have the Mystifying Maze in play as well, which they are obviously holding up, so it might have been worth going for the Generous Gift onto that actually. So yeah, we just pass through to our second main, I think, holding us off quite nicely. Play out a Command Tower, and then we'll draw 2 and discard 1. Rings of Bright Hearth we will put mana into, so that allows us a Telling Time and a Grim Monolith. Just discard the Otawara there, I think. And then it is a Rhystic Study and an Urza Lord High Artificer. Get rid of the Rhystic Study. Our opponent's going pretty slow anyway. Then we'll have Artifacts, Instants and Sorceries cost 2 less this turn. Not going to pay into the Rings of Bright Hearth. I don't think it really benefits us. So that means we get down a free Grim Monolith. And we'll play ourselves Urza Lord High Artificer. And we can still hold up Rewind and Telling Time at this point. Go for a big Sphinx's Rev next turn, I think. Could do it at the end of this turn, actually, with the Urza Lord High Artificer, I suppose. So during the end step, we'll tap out into Sphinx's Rev. That is X is 6, and gets us into some more fast mana. And a Gilded Lotus, pretty much. And there we see a Snap Mage as well. So let's go plus onto the Urza. Might as well put 2 mana into the Rings of Bright Hearth here, because I think we're actually going to make use of our Artifacts and Instants costing 4 less. So Sol Ring into play for free, Gilded Lotus into play for just 1 mana. Then we can play ourselves a Telling Time for just 1 mana. And there we see a Remand, an Offer you can't refuse, and an Opt. So Opt can go into the hand. Offer you can't refuse can go on top and Remand onto the bottom. Then it can be Snapcaster Mage. That can be pointed at the Mystical Tutor. I think if we pointed it at the Sphinx's Rev, we might still be able to go for 0 into X, but have X before thanks to our Urza, but I'm not quite sure, so just going to cast the Mystical Tutor here instead. That will find us a Memory Deluge. Then we'll go for draw 2 and discard with the Urza. And I will put mana into that with Rings of Bright Hearth. So there we see the Frantic Search and Memory Deluge. Get rid of Windswept Heath. And then Celestus as well. Get rid of Mana Confluence. And then we'll drop an island. We can cast Opt during our opponent's turn. And then we'll go for the plus on Karn again. And we reveal with that an island and an Arcane Proxy. So obviously the Arcane Proxy going into exile there. We'll have to go through to combat, and yeah, I think it's fine to start swinging in here. They can obviously exile one of these constructs with the Mystifying Maze, but we're going to be hitting them for damage at least. Okay, but deciding to take the damage, they go plummeting down to 13, so didn't even block there. Maybe they've given up at this point, which couldn't really blame them. Discard a couple of lands to hand size. And yeah, our opponent decides to scoop at that, so could have dragged the game out longer with Mystifying Maze, but we've got Counter Magic held up here, which they could have played into because we actually only have 1 counter spell here, but they're assuming that we have lots of counter magic in hand, which probably a safe assumption for them. Weren't drawing into anything too crazy there, but we definitely controlled our way through that game quite nicely with a turn 5 melded Urza, so hopefully you all enjoyed this gameplay video, and I will see you all in the next one, I hope. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.